Hi everyone, it's good to see you again today. So today, with the prevalence of the internet and online sources of all sorts of material, it's quite prevalent for us to be able to download and assemble our own sheet music. Some of this may in fact become obsolete in the near future with the prevalence of things like iPad and the AirTurn technology, but for now there's still a good amount of need to be able to put our sheet music together effectively. I've run into a lot of situations where people have put together their music either poorly or perhaps not properly, and we can make life a lot easier for ourselves and for our colleagues if we do it in the best way possible. Here's music that's unattached, and it might kind of work, and it's only one-sided. No, I don't think that's really going to work. Two-sided music can be better, but this paper clip there's no way this can work. Some people might not be aware of really the best way to put it together for ease of use, and we'll spend a few minutes today looking at that. There are in fact some other YouTube videos out there that talk about assembling sheet music. Most of those concentrate on what looks like the accordion style of putting music together, and they'll certainly have their places. We'll be looking here at some other ways of putting it together. So before you can put things together, you need to make some decisions. First of all, how are you going to be using or performing the music? What kind of page turns do you anticipate? Things like that. For example, I have a couple of pieces here that I recently put together to accompany some of my students at a recent recital. This particular piece is 4 pages long, and there are no really obvious places where there's an easy page turn, and the nature of the music is such that it's really hard to just lift any of the hands and turn the page. In this case, I opted to make one-sided copies and just take them all together. And this will also work because this piano desk is wide enough to accommodate all 4 sheets. On the other hand, another piece that I used, or another piece that I put together for a different student, also 4 pages, but the nature of the music is such that page turns were much easier to do. So I simply did two-sided, and I put it together in what I call book style. Other things you can look for when you're deciding exactly how to print out your music is where the page turns may lend themselves. For example, here there are a couple of measures rest at the end of a page, so that's a likely place for a page turn. Another obvious place for a page turn might be right here at the end of a movement. Okay, so let's walk through some examples of a good way to put together sheet music with some household clear tape. This first example shows what we can do if our printer does not have the capability of doing two-sided copies or two-sided printouts. All right, here we only have printing on one side, but we would like to set it up as two-sided. So we're going to very simply convert this into two-sided. So make sure that the sheets are nice and even, and assemble them. Okay, and let's stabilize the other sides as well, the other edges. So I'm using right now a granite surface, which makes this particularly easy. Almost any hard surface can be used similarly. Okay, now we have one two-sided sheet. And we'll do the same thing for this. Make sure it's nice and even. Somehow or another, I ended up with an extra piece of tape there, so we'll just get rid of that. Aha, that's how it happened. Okay, same as before. I'll fix the other edges. Okay, so now we have our two-sided sheets of paper. Make sure that you have it oriented so that you know how it's going to go. First page, second page, third page, fourth page. Now simply bring these two together so that they're touching but not overlapping. If you want to have a tiny little bit of a gap in between the two, like 1/4 of a millimeter, that's okay, but certainly no more than that. Now simply put a piece of tape going across, like so. You can do 2 or 3 spots. For just 2 sheets like this, I'll usually do 3 across. Okay, we're almost ready. Now I'm going to take 1 or 2 more pieces to put the equivalent of a binding on what would otherwise be the spine. Let's do a little bit more. Okay. Finish this ersatz binding. And we're good. Now we have two-sided score in what I call book format. Now, what about a case where we have one-sided sheets of music rather, and we want to keep it that way? In this case, this is a cello part to something that my string quartet has as part of its repertoire, and it's such that there's really no ready place for page turning. And luckily, 3 sheets across will fit fine on the music stand. So we're going to set it up just like that. Okay, similar to before. Put adjacent sheets next to each other. A tiny gap is okay. In this case, there's hardly any gap at all. And I'm going to do 3 pieces of tape across again. Now we do the same thing for the joining of these 2 sheets. Same as before, 3 pieces of tape across. Okay. Now to stabilize it, I will also put tape across the other side, just to be sure it doesn't want to come apart from the other side. This part is much easier because we have the other pieces of tape from the front holding them together, making this part much simpler. Okay, this is done. To store the music, we can fold it in an accordion style if we wish, and this can go back into storage very easily. Okay, these are done. Okay. This is part of a cello duet that I am working on with one of my students. In this particular case, it is a 2-sided copy, and it will probably work best to do it in what I call simple book style, the way that music was originally printed. Okay, in this case, let's put it together similar to what we did in the other cases. For the sake of efficiency, I'm just going to do 2 across for this demonstration. Okay, now in this case, first 2 sheets are good. Now I turn the page. Make sure this is nice and straight. Then I add the next sheet to that. Put them together with little to no gap. And again, for efficiency's sake, I'm just going to do 2 across for it. You know what? Let's do 3 across. Okay, turn the page again. Make sure this is nice and flat and straight. Add the next sheet of paper. Do it again. Okay, that was a bad piece of tape. Let's get a good piece of tape. Okay, one of the most important aspects of this entire approach is to make sure that each of these tapes that we put across simply goes straight across. Don't do anything fancy. The fancier you get, the harder it will be to turn the pages down the road. All right, I turned to the page and I'm ready to add the next sheet. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, that is the last sheet. Now, it's still not quite finished. Let's make sure that the pieces of tape in there are nice and firm. All right, so I'm firming down this area of binding, as I might call it. Now I'm going to stabilize the spine, kind of like what we did in the first example. Okay, almost done. And there you have it. Now we have what I refer to as a book style of assembly. You have the first page, and it opens and turns in the same manner that they did back in the day of regular music publishing. And here's the final product, the proof of the pudding, as you might say. Okay, in this case, I have a 3-page piece of music with no obviously good place to turn pages. I set up all 3 so that they were flat across and easy peasy, no problem. In the other situation, I have this other one that we just put together. Okay. We'll play the first 2 pages. Page turn will be easily done. No fuss, no muss, easy page turns, and life is good. So I think if you follow these tips, you'll have an easier time dealing with your sheet music needs. Thanks for joining me again today, and I hope to see you next time.